And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Film Talk Guys.
Hello again, and welcome to This Movie Needs More Flavor. I'm Josh.
I'm Adam.
And today we have a special guest episode with fellow film buff Sean. Sean, say hello.
Hi.
All right, well, today we'll be taking a look at John Carpenter's 1982 sci-fi horror gem, The Thing. Based more on the 1938 John W. Campbell Jr. novella Who Goes There than an actual remake of Hawks's The Thing from Another World, Carpenter assembles a group of ice-bound researchers and laymen led by Kurt Russell as the uncompromising R.J. MacReady. The group ultimately discovers an extraterrestrial capable of and hell-bent on absorbing and imitating all it encounters. Fear and paranoia mount as the men attempt to destroy their alien assailant and escape assimilation by The Thing. Sean, what you got for us?
Yeah, this is The Thing 1982. This is definitely one of my favorite, I guess you could say, like sci-fi horror films I've ever seen. I think John Carpenter, you could definitely tell at this point of his career, he's taken that step up. I kind of watched a BTS on basically how he put this film together. And at the time, he hadn't worked with something as big as Universal Studios. And this was like his big opportunity to like take that next step forward. And it's kind of funny because there's a lot of incidents that happen on this film that I think is really intriguing. One of the main ones that I think is really, really cool is, so there's special effects artist named Rob Bottin. And he ended up doing the special effects for this film. Well, there's a super funny story. I don't know if you guys remember the scene where basically his head comes off the table and it like expands, and then it comes off and it turns into like a spider.
Absolutely, it's one of my favorite scenes.
Super wild scene, and it's like super crazy. Well, the craziest thing for me is that scene didn't go exactly as planned. And what I mean by that is, by watching the BTS, Bottin was talking about that when they put the whole neck together, they were trying to figure out like how they would put it together exactly. So they added like paint thinner and they added like bubble gum, and they were like trying to find some sort of weird concoction to make this thing expand. And for me, the craziest part of all of it was apparently John Carpenter was like, I really like this. This is working, but I think we should add some fire to this so it could really have, the effect. And that, Bottin at the time was like, this is pretty, why not? Let's add some fire to the scene. So they basically were setting up like a pipe system where the fire would come through a pipe and then come upwards. So it would be a completely protected scenario. The problem was, if you do no paint thinner and you put fire, the craziest of possible things happened. And apparently when they had everybody tight on set because the location was really small. And I thought it was really, really crazy because apparently once the fire ignited, there was a massive explosion on set. And it's really funny because apparently he said when he looked at everybody, it was like that old school like 1950s cartoon where everybody was full of ash on their face. And everybody's looking at each other like, did this really just happen? And apparently John Carpenter's like, you idiot, take out the fire, you idiot. And he's like, what just happened? He's like, don't just stand there. Get the fire out.
We gave you fire, sir.
But yeah, that's how crazy, like to me looking back, like people talk about like the special effects of this film. And I think one of the craziest things about it is like they took ambitious steps forward. And it's a really sad thing when you look back at like just like this kind of like, I guess, like old school 80s, like not just animation, because a lot of things that people don't know about this film is there's actually stop motion. There's stop motion animation, which is used in very small portions of this film. I personally thought it was a spaceship at the top of the whole film itself.
I noticed it particularly at the end in the thing's final form.
Yeah. What's really crazy is that there's apparently, I looked at the basically, so they're actually miniatures, which I didn't know when I first time I had watched it. I was like, oh, it's just probably like some stop motion animation. They put it in post and they probably put it like some sort of software. No, it's like built miniatures that they made of the entire set, and they made them into smaller like creatures that they were having this. They had this complete other scene they had shot where apparently the dog was supposed to, you know how they show you like the dog slowly coming out of the creature's side? Well, the miniature stop motion that they had made was supposed to go all the way out. It was supposed to land on the floor and then start crawling forward. There's actually test footage of it out there where you could actually see.
I'm a little disappointed that we weren't able to see that.
Right.
The final product. That sounds really awesome.
But I'm going to go check out that test footage as soon as we're done here.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because to me, the one that really sticks out, which is correct, I think Adam's got it on the point. When the tentacles start coming out of the room, that's when you really you're like, okay, this has been put somewhere before. You know what I mean? Like they didn't just have this like available because that was just too crazy of movement. Another crazy. Let me ask you guys a question because I really want to know if you guys have this on the point. So I guess they call it the chest defibrillation.
Defibrillator.
Let me ask you this. Did you think it was the same actor playing the doctor when he got his arms ripped off?
I'm going to assume that it wasn't because you asked the question.
And I know it wasn't because I know the whole background on it and that that was a stand-in stuntman. It looks clean because he was a double amputee.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. I've watched this film since I was a kid in the 90s. And looking back, I never knew it wasn't him. And they had made a prosthetic face for him to basically make him look identical. So if you actually watch back to that scene, his face is stuck in an expression.
That is actually genius because it happens at a time when you're not necessarily looking for his face. You're just seeing everything, like you're trying to absorb what the hell just happened. Wow, okay. I gotta go back and look at that.
It's so quick and so much is going on that you're not going to see that. And yeah, I would have never known had I not done the countless research and finding out every little aspect of this movie.
Yeah, right on, man.
Yeah, of all the details of the whole film, I thought that one's like one of the most shocking because like it's also the way, like if you look at the way they cut the scene together, it's really, really hard to tell like it was him, especially with the way they use their camera movement as well. Like the frame is used to where you see a lot of over the top of his head and he's kind of at the bottom of the camera. So you just see his expression, but you're seeing like what's around him. So you're kind of stuck in the moment because you're already shocked because of what you just saw that it never like starts to like, the wheels don't start to turn in that moment.
Oh my God, that's not a real face. It's not what I'm thinking.
And it's just like you said, that 80s time period, they're so willing to take chances. And you see the results of that willingness.
And the whole amputee bit was used by FX artists, like even Tom Savini. He did that for Dawn of the Dead, numerous occasions, saves time.
Kind of taking a step away from the effects side of things. Let me ask you this. How many times have y'all each seen the film itself?
I can't really count the number of times. It's definitely in the dozens. I'll put it in the dozens.
Within 10 times. I've seen it numerous times. I just never kept count.
Okay, so if you kind of like really think about the story, I feel like every time I watch the film, there's a moment where you feel like, okay, this is the part of the movie where they got either infected or basically got it like assimilated. And every time I watch the film, I feel like it changes. Maybe that's just a personal me thing, but I feel like I try to find the exact moment in the film.
You won't. I've at least twice I've tried to do that, and they purposely make it to where it's keeping you guessing. Like, I really think they did not want to give you an exact moment where somebody, maybe one time, the initial time with the dog. Other than that, it's just meant to keep you in suspense. That's my thought.
Okay.
And it adds to the sense of confusion and paranoia. You can look all you want, but I would say good luck finding it.
So like one of the characters specifically that I would want to ask you guys about. So Blair is like one of the smartest characters I think throughout the whole film. He's the first one to figure out like that they're able to take over, basically replicating what they exactly want to be. And Blair figures it out first. He goes AWOL because he's like, I gotta back the heck up from everybody. Who's real, who's not? And I always look back at this scene because I try to tell myself, was that Blair in that room when they go to see him after locking him up for a period of time? Because obviously, he went crazy, used the axe, and took it out all in the machines. When they go to ask him, he has like it's like a noose for hanging himself, just hanging there. And he's just sitting there eating some food, and he's like, I'm fine now. Come on, man, let me back in. I'm totally good now.
I want to come back inside. Yeah, and at that moment, I firmly believe that the actual Blair killed himself, and the assimilation got to him before he was quite done. And that's why that noose is there. It had already been used. It wasn't enough.
He was a perfect target at that point. He was isolated.
So that puts me into another perspective where I'm like, okay, if that is the case, it says that the thing itself had to be in a close proximity, and if that's correct, which looks like it's pretty much spot on, which one was it? Because if you think about it, they burned the two bodies of the dog creature, and they burned the body of the basically the double-faced man, which is from the prequel, and you see them get burned. Like they torch them in a hole, and you're wondering like what could have gotten the closest to him, because you never saw the ones that were in the house, which I believe was the two other characters. They basically, you never saw them get that close. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking to myself, was it the twos that were burned in a hole that ended up going over there? Because at the end of the film, because you see the giant dog creature. So is that what it's supposed to be?
I think in some regard, the thing hangs on to whatever it hits. So it's not necessarily that. It's a new replicant of that.
That's a really good question, and it also falls under the you never see it and you weren't meant to see it, and so it keeps you guessing. So as much as I'd like to answer that, I could give you any name in the book. It would just be speculation. That's one of the tantalizing things about this. You want to figure it out, but it's just the information's not there.
And I'll go along with that to the extent that I think in some way people were also fearful that they would be the thing and not know it. So that adds to that component.
Well, let me ask you this: if there's another character that you guys could possibly think at a certain point, if not they were infected or replicated, when you're looking at the character Child at the end of the film, I've always kind of like sat there and wondered on my own. I think it's kind of the point of the ending of the film, for the script. But I always sit there and I think to myself, the last thing you see is two things. Number one, you see him looking out the window, watching over the base while they go out there and they try to figure out what happened to Blair. Well, other than that, you see him running out in the middle of basically, I guess it looks like the night. And whenever you see him run out, the generator turns off. And he's kind of running in like a weird kind of like, but it's really snowy out there, you know what I mean? And I've always kind of sat there and thought to myself, did he get Child?
I actually want to believe it did. The way the film ends, I do believe it was meant to strictly be suspenseful. I think John Carpenter, he just wanted to leave it on a suspenseful note, but it would be fitting that Childs did become the thing because he was gone so long. And I know it's for suspense, but he was gone, so he was alone, and everybody else but MacReady was taken out because they were alone. So I can believe that, and there's a tenseness, not just because there's suspicion, but because one person knows they're the thing, and the other one is wondering. So I'm willing to go with that, personally.
That's what I was kind of thinking. I thought the way that it's shot as well as the dialogue really kind of sets the tone. Throughout the years, I've read so many different things on it through Reddit or basically like YouTube video comments. And there's always been like different opinions. Some people say like the fact that you don't really see the air of Child's like voice was like the biggest indicator because they could freeze and they'll be okay. And then the other really interesting thing is the way MacReady like he responds. There's kind of a conversation. Childs keeps just asking him two things. Well, what are we gonna do? Never taking the lead forward, which is implied throughout the beginning of the film, where the thing never wants to be the leader of the group.
That's true. Childs is pretty aggressive and assertive throughout the movie, and this is the one time where he's just like, he's playing it real cool, I mean, that could just be because he's afraid, But still, I mean, that would lend some credence.
Looking back though, the response by Kurt Russell, like the way his character like sits in that scene, he just starts to laugh, and he goes, "Well, there's nothing we can really do, right?" And Childs once again goes, "Well, what are we gonna do? What do we do?" It's like, I guess we just sit here. And it's kind of like this, like comical, like it's supposed to be like, he's like, you know what? I did everything I could, but at this point, we're gonna just sit here in the cold and there's nothing I can do anymore. I felt like it was a sense of like, I failed. After all of it, like I failed because the thing itself can sit out there in the snow and it'll be fine. And the audience, the typical audience, like, I guess who watched the film the first time, they're in a sense of like, we did it. Like we beat it. Like the good thing is that at least they did what they had to do. But I don't feel like that at the end of the film this time around.
No, and I'm in agreement with that. I mean, he's just kind of resigned himself to, okay, well, I'm here. I'm still around, but I'm stuck out here in the Arctic. Everything's destroyed, and the thing could right across from me still be alive and waiting. So yeah, it ends kind of on a nebulous note.
While that paranoia and dread is still there, well, for MacReady, it's overwhelmed by he's going to find out. Whether Childs is or is not the thing, he's gonna find out. And I think he's just kind of resolved to that.
I think that's a really like that's definitive. Like what you can see in the film. It's kind of weird because when you feel like you watch it the first time, you feel like you had a conclusion that's like a great satisfaction. But like to me, throughout the years, I just sit on it and I'm like, it kind of is up to the audience member. What do you want to believe? Do you want to believe like you got the conclusion that's going to make you happy, or it's going to be more like, nah, you know what happened?
Yeah, there's a reason this film's picked apart by film buffs and who is it and who wasn't it and when they got infected and when they didn't get infected. I mean, all of that just adds to the entertainment value of the film, that you can keep going back to it and still keep finding little things that provoke what side you're on.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. Well, that's definitely some really interesting points to think about. So I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Sean. The Thing is a body horror gross out slop fest, and I love every minute of it. I feel this way about it 40 years after it's released, so I can't imagine how shocking it might have been for audiences in 1982. The kills progressively get more gruesome, and by the time The Thing has maxed out, I'm marveling at how monstrous and grotesque it's become. I mean, this thing is just, I don't know what made it, where it came from, or what the deal is, but it's disgusting. This film relies on, well, like most horror films, relies on the suspension of plausibility. Anytime any of the characters do something alone, or they split up, I can't help but think, like, stay together. Especially at the end when MacReady, Knowles, and Gary are trying to accomplish their task. The Thing attacks the loners, so stay together. Like, it would have taken them slightly longer to accomplish what they were doing, but, you know, most of them would still be alive. Compared to death, come on. I get it, it's a horror film, so, you know, these things happen. But I'm still rooting for the characters. And that adds a certain dimension to this film that has never left me.
We hope you enjoyed part 1 of This Movie Needs More Flavor, The Thing. If you like what you heard, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and be sure to hit the notification bell so you'll know when part 2 drops. Thank you all, and take care.